Good morning. Start in a moment. Tanya, hold on a second. Oh, I forgot to bring the chauffeur.
Where is it? Sure.
Yeah, it's all right.
You want me to go for it?
Nah, we'll
Not tell
survive.
them to tune into your. You know, you could actually share it on Zoom. Why don't you do that? Share it on Zoom
Okay.
at the end.
So remember.
Share screen. If you go now and find that.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. What a beautiful morning it is. We are continuing the chapter 48 of Tanya. It's a very special day to learn Tanya, as today is the day before tomorrow. And tomorrow is Chai Elul, the 18th day of Elul, which is the Yom HaLedes, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was born on the 18th day of Elul, and the Alter Rebbe was also born on the 18th day of Elul. Two luminaries that were born both on the same day, both on the 18th day of Elul. So it's a very special day, extremely special day. So let's look it up. The birth of Baal Shem Tov was on the 18th day of Elul in 1698. And the Alter Rebbe was born in 1745. So they were both born on this day, 18th day of Elul, which exactly also is 12 days before the day of Rosh Hashanah. So the day of the 18th day of Elul is the day that these two great lights came to the world. As we know, the Baal Shem Tov said when the Alter Rebbe was born, the Baal Shem Tov said that an Or Chadash, a Neshama Chadasha, a new soul has come to the world. Meaning, even the Arizal writes that most souls, all souls that are coming down to the world for this time, are, so to say, recycled souls that were reincarnated and into many other souls. But when the Alter Rebbe was born in 1745, the Baal Shem Tov said a neshama chadasha came to the world, and it should be named Shnei Zalman, which stands for two lights. Shnei two lights that are coming to the world, that the Alter Rebbe is going to light up the world with Chassidus, with the teachings of Chassidut, which is why we learn the Tanya together today and why we learn the Tanya every day. And because the Tanya is Torah Shebiksav, so to say, the written law of Chassidut, aspect of the way it comes down into the world. And the Alter Rebbe will also write the Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law. So the Alter Rebbe was a mystic, a Kabbalist, and he was also a great codifier of Jewish law, which we don't find usual throughout history. Usually there were great Kabbalists and great rabbinical codifiers of law. The Alter Rebbe had these two qualities in one body, so to say, and he brought out these two entities in the world, and that's why he was called Shneir, which stands for two lights, and Zalman, which stands for Lazman, that he came down into the world. The world merited for this to come down to the world and to lighten up the world. So it's a great opportunity to learn the Alter Rebbe's Torah, the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, to connect the Chassidus Kabbalah through the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, because this is what he wanted. This is what his neshama came down to the world. His soul came down to the world to light up the world, to bring light to this world. And he does it, and he continues to do it through his learnings, through his teachings, and through us learning his teachings. And we continue this light in the world. So it's a great schus for us to continue to learn Tanya together and to be able to inspire each other in the teachings of Chassidus. And as we know, the Baal Shem Tov, when he asked Mashiach, it's a famous statement of the Baal Shem Tov himself, that we asked Mashiach, Me'ei Mosai Ka'asu Mar, when is Mashiach coming? He asked the Messiah, when are you coming? And the Messiah answered him, Kishiyafutsu Mainasecha Chutza, when your teachings will spread throughout the entire world. And we know that the teachings of Chabad, the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, is the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe called the Baal Shem Tov his Zeta, his grandfather. He was not his physical, maternal grandfather, but he was his spiritual grandfather. And he continued the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov's teachings are all connected and incorporated in the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. And ultimately through all the Rabbeim, through all the 7 generations of Rabbeim from the Alter Rebbe until the Rebbe, our Rebbe, and we continue the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe in chapter 48, which I'm going to show you on the screen. We're in the middle of this chapter. It's a very deep chapter, but it's one of the most important foundations in this chapter in the teachings of Chassidus. And therefore, it's a chapter you should learn many times. And as you can see, I'm going to share with you the chapter from the site of Chabad.org, so you can learn Tanya. You can read this over and over again. You don't have to only learn it with me, but you can continue the learning of this concept in Tanya and from other teachers that are on Chabad.org who explain this chapter, because it's an extremely deep chapter, and I don't profess to have the knowledge or the capability to express and to teach this chapter to its fullest. So the Alter Rebbe introduced us to very important teachings of the Arizal, who taught deep concepts in Kabbalah. And the Arizal explains, I'll give you a couple of words. These are words in Hebrew, Oir Ein Sof, which he characterized as the infinity, the infinite light of God. And to be able for this Oir Ein Sof, this infinite light, to be able to come down into a finite entity, the Arizal writes, there needed to be a tzimtzum. There needed to be a contraction of this light. After they are teaching the Arizal, which Arizal, his teachings were written by his famous student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, who wrote this teaching down, the aspect of tzimtzum, that he said that there was a contraction, so to say, a black hole. And through this black hole came a kav, came a ray of light, which gave the existence, the capability for this oil, for this light that would come from the light lifnei tzimtzum, before the contraction, to be able to bring about that this light can be able to create a physical reality, the world of Atzilus, and then ultimately the world of Bria, and then ultimately the world of Yetzirah, the world of emanation, the world of creation, the world of formation, and ultimately the world of action. And then became a great debate in the words of the Arizal. And the great debate was, what is the concept of tzimtzum? What is this contraction? Was it, when the Arizal said there was a contraction, does it mean that there was a little contraction, that God, so to say, separated himself from the world? And basically, the light that came down to the world is not the light that was before. And basically, the Eibishter, way he's above, is not like the way he's below, which in Hebrew it's called tzimtzum kipshutai. Does the tzimtzum mean that it was a contraction, God, and God cut himself off from the world? Or the way the Alter Rebbe took it, and of course the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe and all the Hasidic Chabad and ultimately most sages throughout history have taken the teachings of the Arizal, tzimtzum shaloi kipshutai. Tzimtzum, the concept of this contraction is only a concept for those that are after the contraction. But to the Oir Hashem, to God, there's no concept of tzimtzum. Ani, there's an expression, and many expressions in the Torah. Ani havaya lo shonisi. We say all sing Adon Olam. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'Teren Kol Yimtzu Nivra V'Hu Haya V'Hu Hayeveh V'Hu Yeh B'Sifara. We say it in our prayers every day. The Eibishter, God, is the same before contraction, before the creation of the world, and all the levels of creation of the world. He is the same before creation as he is after creation. That means to God, there's no concept of contraction. To God, there's no concept of darkness. To God, it's all one's concept. As Moshe Rabbeinu expresses himself in the Torah, Ein Oid Movade. There's nothing but God. And to God, everything is godliness. Everything is a concept of the Eibishter in the world. Everything has the Eibishter. Everything is the Eibishter. Everything is God. Everything is an expression of God. So what is contraction? What is Tzimtzum? Tzimtzum is that we, humans, that are so far and so distant from the Creator should be able to have an existence. So to be able to us to have an existence, we need to have the concept of Tzimtzum. Because if it wasn't for Tzimtzum, if it wasn't for the concept of this contraction, then we would be unlimited. Then we would be nothing, actually. We would be lost in Ein Sof. We would be lost in its infinity. So therefore, the Eibishter wanted, God wanted, that there should be a physical reality, that the physical will not only feel its own identity, but the physical has the capability to feel its separation from godliness, God forbid. So far, the Tzimtzum affected the physical reality that the physical reality thinks that it's separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The physical human being can feel that he's separate from God. The physical human being feels that he doesn't need God, chas v'shalom, God forbid. The physical human being can go against God even. So far, the Tzimtzum, this contraction, affected humanity. As the prophet says in the Shiva de Nechemte, after the destruction of the temple, the prophet cries out to the Jews and says, where is the divorce that God has given you? You're saying God has left you? No, you have left God. God cannot leave you. It's impossible for God to separate himself from humanity. If you understand the concept of creation, if we comprehend the aspect of what a creator is and what is creation, it's impossible for the creator to separate himself from creation. It's possible through Tzimtzum, through this concept of this contraction, and this aspect of where God has also so to the next words, to be able that humans should feel the separation. And the question is, how far the human feel this separation? How far is this separation going to go between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And therefore the Alter Rebbe said, and we learned in the Torah, in Pirkei Avos, that a Jew should feel that one little mitzvah separates himself from God. But we don't feel that way for some reason. We know the biggies. Oh, the biggies. You know, it's coming Yom Kippur. We know the biggie. We have to all fast in Kippur. But the truth is, there's no difference between fasting in Kippur and not eating milk and meat together. There's no difference. They're both a mitzvah in the Torah. There's no difference between not eating milk and meat together and the biggie, circumcision, whatever you or I think is a biggie, is an important mitzvah. They're all written in the Torah. They're all written the same way. They're all written as a commandment. Either it's a positive commandment or a negative commandment. So who made it big or small? We make things big or small. That's what Rabbi says. Don't evaluate between mitzvahs. Don't think that what you think is big is small. What you think is big is big. What you think is small is small. What you think is small might be big. What you think is big might be small. How do you know what a mitzvah is? It's impossible to comprehend. And so too, it's impossible to ultimately comprehend the concept of an Aveda, God forbid, a negative cutoff from God. And that's what Alter Rebbe wrote in the previous chapter, that we fool ourselves. That's Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum, that's Gullus. That's darkness. Darkness, we fool ourselves. We fool ourselves to think that we are only sundered from godliness is through a big thing. But a small thing, We don't cut ourselves off from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the truth is the opposite, is the total opposite. There's no concept like that. God forbid, every Aved I do, I cut myself off from godliness. And every mitzvah, whether it's big or small, whether it's giving tzedakah, or putting on tefillin, or eating matzah, or not, or whatever the mitzvah might be, keeping Shabbos, is all connecting myself to godliness, to connecting myself, getting out of this darkness of the world. So we have Ein Sof, infinity. We have Tzimtzum. And as the Alter Rebbe explained in the beginning of chapter 48, we have Tzimtzum, the concept of contraction. And then we have the aspect of Oid HaSoivev. So in Chassidus, you have Oid HaSoivev and Oid HaMamala. Oid HaSoivev is called the encompassing light. And then Oid HaMamala, the way the light comes within. I think that's encompassing. The Oid HaSoivev is the light that is an aura, that so to say it's around. It's Soivev. Soivev means around. It doesn't come within, seemingly. And the Oid HaMamala, the light that comes within. Oid HaSoivev. What's the meaning of Oid HaSoivev? So the way people took the meaning of Oid HaSoivev in Kabbalah, that is that the light cannot come in. That the light is not within. It's Oid HaSoivev is such a great light. That means it's the Oid, even the Oid that comes after the Tzimtzum, after the contraction. This light that comes about is it's still higher than being able to come into a physical thing. And therefore it doesn't come into the physical thing. It is around it. The halo around it. And the Alter Rebbe says, no, that's not the meaning of Oid HaSoivev. Both Oid HaSoivev and the Oid HaMamala, the Oid that is, so to say, surrounding the thing, and the Oid that comes within it, both come within the thing. These two expressions are only concerning to humanity. That we have a light around us that we cannot, so to say, us cannot take within us. And we have a light that we can take within us. We can handle. But the light itself, there's no difference between the Eibush. There is no difference. God is within us. Whether we comprehend it, whether we're capable of handling or not, the light of God is within us. We have a light of God within us. That's what we said in the beginning of Tanya, that Nefesh Hashenis B'Yisrael, the second soul of a Jew, is a chelek elokam imal mamash, is a part of God Himself. That is because God is within every one of us. You cannot hide God. You cannot hold back the Eibishter from anything in the world. You cannot push Him away from anything in the world. There's nothing you can push away from God. God is in the heavens. What in the heavens means in the most highest concept of spirituality, and above that, and in the physical equally. There's no hidden thing from the Eibishter. There's no hidden thing for God. There's nothing you can do that can separate the thing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's impossible, because if you did that, the thing would disappear. So the Eibishter is in everything itself. And that was the revolutionary teaching of the Alter Rebbe and Chassidus Chabad, that the Eibishter is every Hashgacha Pratis, the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that it's not that God is Hashgacha, the Eibishter God has a vision and an involvement in every single thing in the world. There's nothing in the world that is separate from God, the good, bad, and the ugly. There's nothing. Everything the Eibishter knows and is involved in every situation of the world. And that's Hashgacha Pratis. That's why the Alter Rebbe gives it in Moshe. Says when we do a sin, it's like taking the king head and putting it in the toilet bowl. Because the Eibishter is in this thing, in this action. We have taken God and we have stuffed it in a terrible place. Most of us think God's not here. God's not here. No, God is exactly there. He's exactly in every situation. And not a person and not a human being can separate, say that God is not in this situation. God is someplace else. He's above. He's looking from above. He's angry. He doesn't want anything to do with humanity. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. And that's a very deep teaching of the Alter Rebbe. Let's look at the words of the Alter Rebbe. And let's see if we all can see this in the words of the Alter Rebbe himself. So let's continue. We're going to continue in the chapter 48 of the Alter Rebbe. And let's see the words in the Alter Rebbe. Kocha mamish, that's where I am holding. Right over here. So indeed, it is utterly insignificant quality in this minute illumination, which clothes itself in the higher and the lower worlds in order to provide them with sustenance and life. The Alter Rebbe says, Oila Soiviv is only in the concept of revelation and a little less revelation, not in the concept of total not there. It's thus basically less revealed when compared with the quality of the hidden and concealed light in its infinite order. So the way it's in its infinite order, it's revealed. There's Gilui Elokus, there's revelation. But if you're going to reveal God in this vessel that can handle the revelation, bust the vessel. That's one of the interpretations of Kabbalah in the aspect of Toyu and Tikkun. The world of Toyu was too much light and not enough vessel. So if you have too much light in the world and you don't have enough vessel, you have the breakage of the vessel. And then you have Tikkun. Tikkun is the opposite. A little less light, not such strong light, and a lot of vessels. And when you have more vessel than light, so you have the capability of the vessel holding the light. But the light is the light. It's thus a dimmer light, as we gave the example of the electricity. That you have the electricity that comes into a lower voltage is the same electricity that ultimately comes from the source itself. Why it's not a good analogy is because electricity, ultimately, the source itself has its limitation. It's not unlimited power. The Eibishter is even greater because it's unlimited power. It's unlimited. How do we go from an unlimited? That's the greatness of God. That's why the expression in the beginning of Tanya, where you see the greatness of God, you see the humility of God. That God who's unlimited can give the capability for a limited. That is anava. That is humility. The Eibishter, because the Eibishter, as God, as he gives the limited, the capability to be there, he's still unlimited. That's the greatness of this concept. The Eibishter doesn't come unlimited. He never became unlimited. Even after creation of the limit, he's still unlimited. Because you cannot make God limited. So the Eibishter gave in his unlimited. That means in God's unlimitation, you have limitation. Because if you say that unlimited has no limitation, then that's not unlimited. So if something is unlimited, that means he has both things within him. He has the concept of limitation and unlimitation in this unlimited. That makes him unlimited. But where do you see the greatness of his unlimitation is that he can come into a limitation. That's what I said last week, that a lot of times you find great, unbelievable wise people, but they're not good teachers. Doesn't take away their wisdom. Actually, maybe they're too wise to become limited. Where do you see a greatness of a teacher? That he can teach. That he's able to take his wisdom, which in his capability is to the student is far from, he's like unlimited to the student that is so limited, and he can be able to come down to the limitation of the student. So if the teacher comes down to the limitation of the student, does the teacher become limited? No, the teacher continues to be unlimited in comparison to the student. But he has the capability to bring about a concept of limitation in his teaching. That's the analogy of Shlomo Melech, who is the wisest man of all time, and he had the capability to give a noshel, to give an analogy. So you take the analogy, the mashal, the analogy. The analogy is not the seichel, is not the wisdom. It's an analogy. But the chachma is that this analogy has within it the wisdom. So you give a story, like everybody loves a story. So we try to explain something with a story. The story has nothing to do with the per se the wisdom itself. That's why the Torah says, we have expression in the Gemara. The Torah says that the Eibishter, God loves the stories of the fathers more than the teachings. Why? Because we as humans love stories. We love to learn from stories. It becomes more, to us, it becomes more human. It becomes more tangible. When you tell a story and you have the capability of telling a story, which is a talent in its own, to be able to tell a story so that the person can hear a story that has nothing to do with the wisdom per se. And in the story, he can acquire an unbelievable wisdom. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty. That's what the Eibishter gave us, the capability of telling stories and stories itself. And Munas Chachamim, the aspect of telling stories of Chachamim, of the sages, telling stories of the Rabbeim, because it gives us the capability to touch something that is so deep and so precious in the way that I can comprehend it, because it's through a human story. But the light of God, the essence, the teaching is much greater, even after it came into the story self-understood. The teaching, the chachma, is still much deeper than the story. And we all can comprehend that the wisdom is much deeper than the story. It goes much further than the story. It goes much deeper than the story, as much in breadth and in quantity and quality. It's much more edler than the story and much more refined than the story itself. So too, the Oid Ein Sof, this is how the Alter Rebbe explains this aspect, this concept, this aspect of the Oid Ein Sof, the way it comes into a Oid HaSovev, is not that, God forbid, the light is not found in the vessel. No, not that it's around the vessel, not in the vessel. That's wrong, the Alter Rebbe says. It's called Oid HaSovev because in the vessel, it's Behelem. As it's in the vessel, it is hidden. The light is hidden. The Oid HaMamale, the light that comes in the vessel, is because it's gilui, it's revealed. The Oid HaSovev is hidden. So that's look at the next words. It does not close itself or exercise its influence in the world in a revealed manner, providing them with life, but encompassing them from above. That's why it says encompassing them from above. So yes, it is encompassing light. So it's called the encompassing light. Why is it encompassing? Not that it's not there. It's encompassing because it's hidden. So that's what the Alter Rebbe continues. And this is called Soiviv Kolam, encompassing all the worlds. And the Alter Rebbe continues, the meaning of this is not that it encircles and encompasses from above. God forbid, for in spiritual matters, the category of space is no way applicable. Godliness cannot be controlled. Godliness is part of God, cannot be controlled. You cannot hold it back. You cannot control it. No vessel can stop it. No darkness can stop it. Nothing can stop it. God did us a favor. He did this. He brought this earth in a helam. He did us a great favor. Because if God didn't hid this light, we would all be bottled. We would all be nullified. We'd lose our existence. So therefore, God hid himself, so to say. But not that God is not there. He's 100% there. Alter Rebbe once came home. Say the story. He came home. He saw his son. The Alter Rebbe was crying. So he asked him, "Why are you crying?" He says, "Because we just played hide and seek. We played hide and seek, and I was the one who was the guy who had to hide, kid who had to hide. I hid. I hid so well they couldn't find me. So they gave up. They all left." The Alter Rebbe turned to them and says, "See, that's what you did. You hid so well. You're hiding too well. And we gave up. We stopped looking because we thought you're not there. Chas v'shalom. You're 100% there. We have to be able to reveal and find the Eibishter in the hidden. That's the avoid of a yid, to connect to the Oir HaSovev. Because more that we connect to the Oir HaSovev, to this encompassing light, to the light that is higher than vessels, so to say, the more we reveal the light within the vessel itself. But the problem is that there are those who took the concept of Tzimtzum and ultimately the concept of Sefer of Kalalman, and they translate as God is Chas v'Shalom not here. He's out of the vessel. He's out of the world. God is not in the world. He's above the world. He doesn't know what's happening. He's not involved in Chas v'Shalom, God forbid, in the day-to-day of the world. Chas v'Shalom, that's that the Alter Rebbe says. He writes this with God forbid. So why did God do that? I said, Alter Rebbe says, but the meaning is that he encircles and encompasses from above. Insofar as the revelation of this influence is concerned, the Eibishter didn't want that it should be such a strong influence on the world, because then the world will lose its free choice. Then the world will lose its humanity. God wanted a human world. God wanted a natural existence. Therefore, he created the natural world. If God wanted just the continuation of spiritual worlds, he would have continued to have spiritual worlds, as he has it in the upper worlds. But over here, he wanted a world of action. He wanted a physical world. He needed to hide this light, that the world can handle what it gets, what it receives. But Chas v'Shalom, to say that the Eibishter hid the world, hid himself, and he went away from the world. So for influence, which is the category of relation in the world, is referred to as investure, being clothed within the world. The influence that they receive is closed and comprehended by the world. That is Oir HaMemala. That's the question. How much each and every one of us can handle this Oir? It's up to us, each and every one of us, to be able to connect to how much Oir we can handle and how much Oir we cannot handle. We have the famous story in the Gemara, Abba Nichnus Lapadis. There were 4 who went into the teachings of Kabbalah. 3 didn't make out, 3 didn't make through. 1 passed away, 1 a Meshuggah, 1 became a heretic. Rabbi Akiva, Nichnas b'Shalom, v'Yotze b'Shalom. Rabbi Akiva went in peace, came out in peace. So you have to have the capability to be able to acquire unbelievable light of God. If the vessel is not going to be able to handle it, so God forbid, break the vessel. And that's not the purpose of the world, to be broken vessels, to do things that you cannot do or not capable of handling this Oir Hashem that's in the world. That's the concept in general of Golus, the aspect of exile, which showed the Eibishter when he created the first, when the Yidden, in the time of Shlomo Melech, built the Beis HaMikdash, the first temple, there was Gila Lakos, there was a great revelation of godness in the world. But it was such an extreme light of God in the world that the world was not affected in a way. And ultimately it was Churban Beis HaMikdash. There was a destruction of the temple. And it's truly fascinating if you know the history, you learn the history, of the Yidden, even in the time of the first temple. They were struggling with God in such a forceful way that their kings put idols. They had a struggle with idol worship in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. A great, great struggle with God and idol worship. Things that today we wouldn't even think about, they were doing in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. You might think, well, that makes sense. There they had revelation of godliness, and they were struggling with idol worship. Today, who's struggling with idol worship? You might be struggling with other issues. Nobody's struggling with bowing down to a little calf. Jews were struggling then with idol worship. Because that shows you actually there's always a yin and a yang, a tick and a tat, so to say. So since there was such great godliness, there was such struggle in Avodah Zarah and idol worship. In the opposite, the total opposite, 2 commandments: I am God, your God. You shall not have other idols. This was the struggle. When you have Gil Elikus, revelation of godliness, you have the struggle of idol worship. Second Beis Hamikdash, there was not such Gil Elikus. Until today, there's not such Gil Elikus. Not that there's no God in the world, there's no Gilui. There's no revelation of God in the world. And therefore, we don't have the struggle of idol worship. We have, what is our struggle? Me. My struggle is myself. I have my own basic struggles, my taivas, my gaiva, my ego. That's the biggest struggle that we have today in the world. The me. That is the Avodah Zarah. So Gemara says, for example, somebody who gets angry is like he worships Avodah Zarah. What's the Avodah Zarah today? Anger. We have anger. Why do we have anger? Because we are basically fighting with God. We're fighting with God within us. We're struggling with God within us. Each and every one of us has our own struggles, our own nisyonos. We're not worshiping idols. None of us is doing big avedas that we're worshiping idols. We're not killing people. Baruch Hashem. We've come a long way. Baruch Hashem. But we're still struggling. We all have our inner struggles. And we all have our Yetzer Hara. And we all have our Nefesh HaBahamis that we need to fight with. But it's not the struggles of years ago. Baruch Hashem. So we're hoping for a day that ultimately will overcome this inner struggles. That's the journey that we're in right now. We'll overcome these inner struggles and ultimately reveal the Oir HaSovev, the encompassing light, the light that is above myself, the light that is greater than myself, that I'll be able to reveal this light within me. The Chassidus explains the whole concept of Rosh Hashanah. We are coming to Rosh Hashanah. Yomim Noiroim, days of awe. What is Rosh Hashanah? What is Rosh Hashanah? What is the basic principle? If you want to ask, what is the most important point of Rosh Hashanah? There's so many things going on. But what are we really trying to accomplish on Rosh Hashanah? And Chassidus explains, there's one aspect we are trying to accomplish on Rosh Hashanah, and that is Tamlichuni Aleichem. That is that we are crowning God king over us. We're not crowning God only king over the world. We're crowning the HaKadosh Baruch Hu king. Oh, I'm crowning God as a melech over myself. Who is God a melech over me? Zalman Buket. Not if he's a melech over the world, he's controlling the world. Is the Eibishter a melech over me? Is he my boss or not? Is the Ashgacha Pratis with me? Me, myself. Does the Eibishter know exactly what I'm doing, what I'm thinking? Does the Eibishter care what I'm doing, what I'm thinking? Does the Eibishter want me to do better and not to do? Does God have a personal interest in me? That is Rosh Hashanah, my friends. That is what it is. So most of us think, no, the Eibishter is busy with the world. There's a lot going on in the world. He really cares about me. Eibishter ain't safe. He's infinite. He's unlimited. He really cares about me, what I'm doing. And if I don't do it, if I am going to do it, I mean, are you serious? But here the Alter Rebbe explains that I have all this knowledge in my mind is only for me. The Eibishter is Ein Sof Lamaila, as he's in with you, as he's in with me. The Eibishter is unlimited above, as he's in me. That's the most limited entity in the world. So God, he's Pashut, unlimited above and very limited in me. I've now limited the Eibishter in the most limited situation. Chas v'sholom. God forbid, can you limit HaKadosh Baruch Hu? God forbid anybody should limit God in any way. I'm limited. Very limited. I said a word from the Rebbe yesterday on the Tillim. We say every day in davening. We say the Tillim, chapter 27 of Psalms, when David HaMelech says, "Acha shoalti me'es Hashem, oisa avake shifti be'es Hashem." David HaMelech, when he said this chapter of Psalms, he was in great, great pain and suffering. And the Chazal say, one of the teachings of the Medrash says, what did David HaMelech ask? Acha shoalti me'es Hashem. What am I asking of God? Shifti be'es Hashem. I want to dwell in the house of God. Is that he wanted to be in the Kisa HaMalchus. He said, I'm praying. I know that I'm supposed to be a king, and I want to sit in the house. I want to be a king. I want to be a melech. Think about it a second. David HaMelech is that when he wrote this mizmor, he was running away from Shaul. He was running away from the Plishtim. He was a fugitive, a sought after man, a man who was chased day and night. He lived in caves. He was running for his life. You would think he would ask, let me have a peaceful day. Give me a moment of rest. Let me be free. No. David HaMelech says, I want to be king. David HaMelech said, I'm going to ask for small things. I'm a Ben Melech. I'm the king. Even though he was not the king at that time. But he said, I want to be a Melech. We can think, we can ask, the Rebbe would always, you can ask by the Eibush as we come to the end of the 2 weeks, we come to the end of Elul, we can ask by God small things. We can ask by God the small things that we need, or the small troubles that we need to get out of, or we can ask Shifti Beis Hashem. We can ask for the big things. Mashiach should come. To be end of Galus. Those are the big things. Shifti Beis Hashem Kol Yemei Chayei. A Yid should daven and pray to the Eibush for the big things. I have these issues, small issues here and there. Fine, but you got to think like a big person. Think Think with the encompassing light that you have within you. Reveal the big things within you. Reveal the unlimited within every one of us. We shouldn't think that the unlimited, the Ein Sof, the neshama, the nefesh elakis alachelek elakam and ma'am, which we learned in Tanya, the beginning of Tanya, chapter 2 of Tanya, that we have each one a chelek elakam, we each one have a spark of God within us. That spark is unlimited. Even though it's in my limited existence, that spark as it stands right now in my limit is unlimited. Ein Sof. That Oira Soiviv, that encompassing light is within me in an unlimited capacity. That's all I need to do, is to take it from the hidden to bring it into the revealed. to the best of my capability, to take it from the hidden, to bring it to the revealed. And if I can do that, if I have the capability to bring out one aspect of this encompassing light, to be able to reveal it into my existence, that is Rosh Hashanah. Tamlichuni aleichem ubameh b'shofar. And the way we do it is all in the shofar. Because the shofar we blow from the narrowest part, and we blow it, and it comes out into the wide. Pischa, as the verse says, Pischli kechut shamachas. Open up yourself like the mount of a machat. And I'll open you up like the widest of what wide HaKadosh Baruch Hu can open up things for us. Because we got to think about the wide, we got to think about the big, than to think about the narrow. Because even though we are in the narrow, we might be still in the narrow, but we have, each and every one of us has within us the most widest aspect in the world. We have within us a godly soul, which is Oir Ein Sof, which is, that Alter Rebbe explains, the Chassidus explains, it's Atzmus, the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is in us, and that's unlimited. There's no limited situation that can be. There's a story that's told the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe brought up his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, who came the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. He brought up his grandson because his mother passed away when he was a young child. And the Alter Rebbe brought him up. And he brought him up ultimately to become a Rebbe. Came the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek. And the story that's told that once the Tzemach Tzedek, as a young child, young little boy, was sitting on the Alter Rebbe's lap. And the Alter Rebbe asked this young child, who is the Zeta? Where's the Zeta? Where's Zeta? Where's Zeta? So the child pointed to his beard. So the Alter Rebbe said, this is the beard of the Zeta. Where's the Zeta? So he pointed to his heart. The Alter Rebbe said, that's the heart of the Zeta. Where's the Zeta? And so the child pointed different things, his hands, his head, and he kept on saying, that's where's the Zeta? Child got off the Alter Rebbe, this young child got off the lap of his grandfather, and he started walking to the door. And as he decided to play with the handle of the door, he turned around and said, Zeta. The Alter Rebbe turned around and said, yeah, my kind, there's the Zeta. Child said, that's the Zeta. That's Zeta. When I called you, you turned to me. That's the Zeta. The beard's a Zeta. The head is a Zeta. When you call the Zeta, what is the Zeta? He's everything. It's not his beard. It's not his head. It's not his hand. When you call the Zeta, when you call out to the Zeta, and the Zeta says, what can I do for you, my child? That's the Zeta. That is the essence of everything. You can say that example in anything in life. Who am I? You can ask the same question. What is each and every one of us? What we do, what we make, what we have. What is our essence? It's much more encompassing. That what we really are might be hidden. Some things that most people who they really are, they don't tell anybody. They hide it. They got to go to a psychologist and maybe they can talk who they are. Psychiatrist. It's hard to say who you are. To pay money to tell people who you really are. Because who we really are is above all these titles, all these physical things, all these dimensions. Because who we really are is much higher than that. Is much greater than that. Is much more powerful than that. Because we have a neshama. Because that's who we really are. So really the Oida Helem, the hidden light, is really more greater what we are than the revealed light, than the light that's revealed. Because that is very limited, and that's not who we really are. Even though that is. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a rabbi. I did this, I did that. I said this drasha, I didn't say that drasha. I express myself this way. I don't express myself that way. I'm more emotional. I'm more intellectual. I'm more cold. You have all these expressions. Is that who we really are? Is that what really makes us who we are? Avada, we all understand that that's not true. What makes us who we really are is much deeper, much wider, much greater. Sometimes it's hard to touch. Sometimes it feels distant from us. Sometimes when we do something wrong, we say, that cannot be me. How am I doing this? It's not me. I don't usually do this. I shouldn't be doing it. We all know that. We all need to reveal who we really are. And Chassidus says, you are much greater than you put yourself as. All the labels that you give you're diminishing who you really are. Why would you diminish who you really are? Reveal. Well, I need to reveal myself for my true capacity, my true capabilities. I shouldn't be afraid to be able to reveal these things in the world, to myself and to others. And that's one of the most important teachings that we learned today in this beautiful part of Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe revolutionized the concept of the Arizal, which the Arizal did not explain, left it open for arguments and discussions and great debates. But ultimately, even those that went against the Alter Rebbe in his time, ultimate later generations said that the Alter Rebbe was correct. Simtsum shaloi kipshutei. That the Arizal said is the concept of contractions. It doesn't mean that, God forbid, that God, so to say, separate himself from the world. It means that God hid himself from the world. God hid himself from the world. It's a great difference than to say that God separated himself from the world. And that's why the Rebbe would always say, a very famous statement of the it's brought down in Pirkei Avos. Kol ma shabara hakadosh baruch hu ba'ilame. Everything, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, everything that God created in this world, everything, lo bara ella lichvoidoi. Everything that God created in this world, he created for his covet, for his glory. There's nothing in this world that God did not create that will be able to reveal the godliness in it. Nothing. Kol, nothing. You cannot find nothing in the world that God can reveal its greatness in it. And that's why the ultimate prophecy is V'ro kol basa yachto. It's going to come a time that all flesh, all human beings will see. V'ro, they will see the human being. That's the prophecy. The prophecy is going to come a day that every human being will see the word of God. Every human being will see with his own humanity, living in his own physical body, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the glory of God, that now we don't have the capacity. We don't have the vessels, even though it's right there, even though it's right within us, but our bodies don't have the capability. Because if God revealed that what's within us, it would break us. So therefore, that's why the Rebbe would say that everything is totally in our. It hangs on our action today. If we can just work more on revealing godliness today, then we come to the ultimate, which is the revelation of godliness for everybody in the world. So you might say, I am going to bring my little actions is going to bring about godliness in the world? And that the Rambam answered that already. The Rambam says, yes, you, me, Talmud Bukit, can accomplish something in this world that will bring godliness to the world and will transform the world, and not only for himself, but for all Jews and for ultimately for the entire world. And that's our avodah, that's our service. And as the Rebbe would always say, Anan Pala Diyamam Anan. We are the workers of the day, or we are the workers of light. We are the workers of light. That's our avodah. That's our service, to work more in the concept of light, to bring light into the world. And ultimately, a little light, will disperse a lot of darkness. And I hope and I pray that each and every one of us will reveal a little bit more light in the world. And by revealing a little more light, each one in our own level, will bring the ultimate light, which is the coming of Mashiach, when then will be the revelation of godliness in the world. And every human being will see, as in their own humanity, they'll see this great revelation in the world, that they'll see something that the Rambam writes, the Mashiach comes, the world will realize their mistake. Because right now, it's behelim, they can make mistakes. When the light is revealed, they'll realize, oh, it was a mistake. Not that the light was not there and suddenly it became a new thing. No, the light was always there. God was always there. God never left the world. God is always there. He never ever went anywhere. He never ever went someplace else. He's exactly where he was for the time of creation. He's exactly here at the same situation right now. And I hope and I pray that we all can reveal a little more godliness in the world and reveal the hidden godliness that's here with us in the world, and will merit to the ultimate revelation of the coming of Mashiach b'meheda b'yameinu mamash. I want to mention, I mentioned this coming Wednesday night, we have a phenomenal speaker, Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, who's somebody has sponsored him to come and speak to everybody over here. It's going to be, he's going to speak to us through Zoom, self-understood, but he's going to speak to us personally. So everybody's invited to participate on Wednesday night. Also, the last class of the JLI on Mashiach is this coming Tuesday night at 7:30, and on Thursday at 10 o'clock. Also on Monday night at 7 p.m. Busy schedule, my friends, as we count down the days towards the new year. And let us hope, as the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov said that the Alter Rebbe was given a neshama chadasha. The Alter Rebbe said yesterday in Tanya, Chitas, that the new year is a Chodesh, a new light comes to the world. An Chodesh that wasn't here since the creation comes to the world, and we hope and pray this Chodesh transforms the whole world into a whole new reality. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful and beautiful day. Have a gorgeous day. I wish you all a happy Labor Day weekend, whatever that means. And have a wonderful week. God bless you all. We'll see you all in Mid Shem on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday. We'll see you all. Hopefully you'll participate in all the wonderful things, my wife's classes, etc., etc., etc. Learning never ends. God bless you all. I wish you a great day.
Thank you so much. Sei gesund.
Sei gesund. Anybody have a question?